Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here, and I'm going to get rid of these lines. The first thing we're going to do here is handle the constructor, okay, and test exceptions. All right, you see we're using the constructor here in the setup method. And in this case, the constructor works. Okay, but what's not working are the exceptions. We want to test if we're throwing the correct exception. All right, so I'm going to write a test called test constructor. Let's see, what do I want to call this? I want to test the constructor when different things are null, and I want to test the constructor when different arguments are invalid. So let's first test the constructor when different arguments are null. And what do I have that goes into this constructor? What arguments? I have the name, I have the birthday, I have the gender, I have the email address. Okay, so I'm going to say test constructor name is null. So I should get a null pointer exception. What I want is a null pointer exception here. And the way I'm going to do that is right next to this test annotation, I'm going to write in parentheses expected equals null pointer exception dot class. This is just the way you have to do it. It's kind of annoying because it's hard to remember, but you always have to put that dot class there. It would be a lot easier if they just said expected equals null pointer exception, but you have to put the dot class on there. So I'm going to create a new Fred. I'm going to use the Fred variable, and I'm just going to reassign it. And Fred is not final, so I can reassign it. Instead of Fred, actually, I'm just going to copy this entire constructor here, these entire arguments. All right, put a semicolon there. And instead of Fred here, I'm just going to replace this variable with null. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go ahead and run my test and see what happens there. So essentially, I expect this to throw a null pointer exception. And this is what this piece of code is saying, that you do expect this test to throw a null pointer exception. So let's go ahead and run that and see if that passes. And that does indeed pass. And let's just change that back to Fred to make sure this does not pass. Okay, so we got one failure here. Test constructor name is null. Is considered a failure. All right, so our test fails, and that's good. Some people also like to put fail there, just kind of as a sanity check. If you run this, save it first, it will also fail, but instead of being called a failure, it will be called an error. And here's the error you get down here. It says unexpected exception. I expected a null pointer exception, but let's see what I got. But in fact, we've got an assertion error. Okay, and that assertion error was due to that fail method. Okay, so you can put that in or leave that out. It's going to be the same thing. I mean, if you fail a test because of an error, or you fail a test because the test failed, you still failed the test. All right. Sometimes it helps you track down exactly what happened if you failed because of an error or a failure, but you still failed the test. Okay, so we're going to put this in here. We're going to take that back to null because that's what we want the test to deliver, a null. We're going to go ahead and run that, and all our tests passed. Now let's look at the code coverage. All right, so we're up to 45.3% already. And we see now that all two branches of this person are covered. When before that test, only one branch of this NER null condition was covered, and now all two branches are covered. And if we go down to the NER null private method, we see that now we've got this branch completely covered, this true-false name equals null, because we run a test where name does not equal null, and we run a test where name does equal null. So those two branches are covered in that first condition there, or first portion of the condition there. So all we have to do now is cover the other branches. All right, and that's easy. You do that the same way. Let's go back to person test. So we've got test constructor name is null. We'll just create tests for all of the in fact, I'm just going to go and cut and paste. Okay, so I've got, okay, there's name is null, and my second one is going to be birthday is null. And I have to make sure I change the test here. That's the scary thing about cut and paste. So I want to make the birthday null in this test. And I want to make gender is null in this test. And I have to make sure I put that Fred in there, or I'm going to get Fred is null, because that's going to be the first thing it checks. Okay, so that's going to be null. And then finally, email is null. Okay, save that. And let's run it. It passes everything, and let's do the coverage. So I think we had 45.3, and now the coverage is still 45.3. Let's go and look at this. This is interesting. So for email address, we're still not covering all two branches of that, and that's probably because I forgot to change Fred to null, and there it is, or null back to Fred, I mean. Okay, so I forgot to change the name back to non-null. Let's run the coverage again. And we're still getting 45.3%, but it's actually covering our private methods now. Maybe this is set up to just report the percentage of public methods. I'm not sure why that's still 45.3, but I will think about it and get back to you if I figure it out. Okay. So we've tested the null. Now we've got to test the invalid things. And same thing here. We've correctly tested these things if everything is valid. But now we've got to make sure each of these things becomes invalid to cover this entire private method. So let's go ahead and do that. It should be pretty similar. All right, so there's our null pointer exception tests. So I'm going to write test expected equals, and this one's going to be an illegal argument exception. And I'm going to call it public void test constructor. Name is empty. Okay, so name is the empty string. That's a method. All right, so I'm going to grab Fred's original code here. Copy that. And I'm going to paste it in there. And I'm just going to make Fred the empty string. All right. And actually, I'm going to change Fred back to Fred temporarily just because I want to do a bunch of copy and pastes here. Let's see how many I have to do. I have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Okay, I've already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right, this is the first one here. Name is empty. And then the second one, constructor. I want to do these in order. So the birthday is early. The birthday is late. Email is empty. And email no at or something like that. All right. So name is empty is there. And then we're going to say birthday is early. And then for this one, we're going to say birthday is late. And then for this one, we're going to say email is empty. And then for this one, we're going to say email no at. Okay, so we're going to come back up here, and here's our name is empty one. So we're going to make that empty. Save that. And birthday is early. Okay, the birthday is early if it comes before January 1st, 1800. Okay, so let's just make this 1799, December 31st. Okay. Birthday is late if it comes after today's date. And I've mentioned this before, you've got to be careful with writing a test case that works today but does not work tomorrow or does not work a year from now. So I'm going to give us plenty of room. Hopefully people will not be testing this software in the year 2100. Okay. So, all right. Okay. 2500. Let's do that. 2500, January 1st. Okay. That should definitely be a late birthday. Test constructor email is empty. That means this is got to be empty. And test constructor email no at. So let's just take the at sign out of that. fredexample.com. And all of this should work fine. Okay, we should get all our tests pass. Fantastic. Look at that. Okay, so let's do the coverage. Okay, and we're up to 47.2 coverage. Let's just take a look at the person class, particularly those private ones. Okay, so any are invalid. So now we've got 100% coverage on that. And actually, let me look at this to see if those private methods are being taken into consideration. Any are invalid. Okay, so that's a private method there. Now we've got a 100% coverage in that. And let me see. Let me just do this. We've got any are invalid, any are null. I'm going to change this so that I'm going to comment out one of these tests just to see what happens with the coverage. Test constructor email no at. I'm going to comment that out. And I'm going to run the coverage again, or run the tests with the coverage again. Okay. And I'm going to drill down here. And any are invalid. I'm still getting 100% coverage on that. Covered instructions. Let me go ahead and look at that. So that's interesting. One of two branches missed. It's still telling me one of two branches are missed, but it's not. It's still showing up as 100% coverage on that. I probably just don't have this set up right. Our goal in this video, at least, is going to be to cover all of those conditions. So maybe there's something with ECL EMMA, the default, if all conditions are not covered, but it still looks at 100% coverage as statement by statement. So that's the only thing I can think of. But anyway, our goal in this video is going to be to get 100% coverage, even of the conditions, to turn everything green. Okay, and there it is. Any are invalid is all green now. Okay, so now we know how to test exceptions in a class.